Connor Coffin was one wave away from becoming world champion. Then he just walked away. No injury, no scandal. This isn't a story about a surfer who lost his way. It might be the smartest move any pro surfer has ever made. Connor Coffin grew up in Santa Barbara, California, the kind of coastal town where kids learn to swim before they learn to ride a bike. He fell in love with the ocean at 4 years old, and that love became something closer to a lifeline. At school, he never quite fit in with the other kids. He didn't chase the things they chased. But down at the beach, none of that mattered. The water didn't care who he was in the hallway. It only cared whether he could read a wave. So that's where he went. Every morning before school, every afternoon after it, every weekend his parents would let him have. While other kids were figuring out what they wanted to be when they grew up, Connor already knew. He wanted to surf for a living. He wanted to make the World Championship Tour, the top level of the sport, where only the best surfers on the planet get invited to compete. That kind of goal sounds nice on paper. Getting there meant surviving 16 years of qualifying events, flights to contests most people have never heard of, and enough near misses to break a weaker competitor. Connor didn't break. In 2016, at 22 years old, he finally qualified. The kid from Santa Barbara who didn't fit in at school was officially one of the best surfers alive. But making the tour is one thing, surviving on it is another. Back when he first joined the Monster Energy team, he was just a grinning kid from Santa Barbara with a bowl cut and a baby face, the kind of grom every local lineup has one of. Nobody outside his hometown expected much from him yet. For the next 7 years, Connor Coffin lived a life most surfers only dream about. Contest stops in Australia, Brazil, France, Portugal, Hawaii. A jersey on his back and a scoring potential the entire industry respected. He wasn't the loudest name on tour. He wasn't throwing airs for the cameras. His game was rail work, smooth carves, and a style that judges kept rewarding heat after heat. Fellow Californian Taylor Knox, a power surfer himself, once broke it down simply. Connor's rail game was his greatest weapon, air tricks or not.
But ultimately kind of more committed to the competitive side of things, huh?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely not like to think that my surf career is far from over at this point.
And it wasn't just his surfing that stood out. Off the water, Connor was reading novels and playing guitar in hotel rooms, while other surfers were scrolling through highlight reels. He even finished his college degree in the middle of it all, squeezing in coursework between qualifying events on 3 different continents. A surfer, a student, and a musician, all traveling in the same suitcase. By 2021, that style had turned into something bigger than anyone expected. Connor finished the season ranked 4th in the world, the best finish of any American man that year, and the best by a non-Brazilian surfer on the entire tour. For a kid from a California beach town, that ranking put him in rare company. It had been more than 30 years since a Californian man had come anywhere close to a world title. And suddenly, Connor Coffin was the one carrying that hope. His brother Parker was right there with him, another Coffin making waves in the same lineup, close enough that the two of them eventually put their names on a signature fin together. Surfing is, and always has been, a family business for the Coffins. For a moment, it looked like Connor was building toward the thing every competitive surfer chases, a real world title shot, the kind of run that turns a very good career into a legendary one. But professional surfing does not care how well your last season went. Every year the slate gets wiped clean, and every year the tour finds a new way to remind you how thin the margin is between staying and getting cut. In 2022, that margin caught up to Connor. A mid-season cut, the mechanism the tour uses to trim the field, dropped him off the Elite Tour and down into the Challenger Series, the tier just below it. For most surfers, that kind of demotion is the beginning of the end. You spend a year grinding through smaller events, trying to re-qualify, watching guys you used to beat pass you by. Connor did exactly that. A year and some change of what he later called Challenger Series groveling, chasing points at contests with none of the prestige and all of the grind. And somewhere in that grind, something shifted. Not a loss of talent, not an injury, a change in what he actually wanted his life to look like. By 2023, right before that year's World Tour Finals, Connor made his decision. He hung up the jersey. He walked away from competition entirely, on his own terms, in a sport where almost nobody gets to choose their own ending. Here's what makes his exit different from almost every surfer who came before him. He wasn't chasing a bigger paycheck. He wasn't nursing a career-ending injury. He wasn't run out by controversy. He simply looked at the life the tour was asking him to live and decided he wanted something else instead. He was getting married. He and his wife wanted to start a family. Connor has said in his own words that he wanted to be fully present for his son's birth and those very first years of his life, not somewhere on the other side of the planet chasing ranking points. Think about that for a second. This is a guy who spent 16 years qualifying for a tour, then 7 more years competing on it, then finally reached the doorstep of a world title. And the moment it was all his to keep chasing, he chose his family and his own definition of freedom instead. Almost every athlete gets pushed out the door by injury or age. Connor Coffin opened it himself and walked through smiling. So what does that chosen life actually look like now? It starts with an old, weathered fishing boat called the Double Edge. 3 years ago, Connor and a couple of friends bought a 26-foot Anderson, built back in 1988, right there in Santa Barbara. Boats like this were designed for one job: hauling heavy loads of sea urchin and abalone across a rough channel without flipping. This particular boat had been worked by the same local fishing family since the day it launched. Connor didn't just buy it, he rebuilt it, engine by engine, board by board, learning how twin diesel inboards work the hard way, which is to say by breaking down out at sea and limping home on one engine while he figured out what failed. He linked up with a local shaper named Jeff Hull, along with Eddie Anderson and Clint Malone, 3 guys who knew the boat's bones better than anyone alive, and together they gave it a second life. Connor calls it his pirate ship, old, smoky, full of character. He's even planning a film about its history, the same way he once starred in films about his own surfing. He said he might even go after his own commercial urchin permit one day, chasing the same waters the old-timers worked decades before him. These days, that boat is as much his office as any wave is. He runs commercial fishing trips out of Santa Barbara Harbor, pulling in halibut and sea bass for local restaurants, plus dive trips for permitted divers chasing the same urchin and abalone the boat was built to carry. The kid who once measured his life in heat scores and ranking points now measures some mornings in pounds of fish sold to a local buyer. And surfing hasn't disappeared, it's just changed shape. Without a jersey and a scoreline to answer to, Connor says he surfs more creatively now than he ever did on tour, riding whatever board he wants, chasing waves for the feeling instead of the number attached to them. He's also found a second act as a broadcaster of sorts. Alongside 805 Beer and the World Surf League, Connor hosts a podcast called Cold Beer Surf Club, sitting down with surfers like big wave pioneer Peter Mell to talk about everything from Mavericks to family life. No script, no rules, just 2 people who love the ocean talking about it. Guests have ranged from fellow surfers to musicians like Foo Fighters guitarist Chris Shiflett. Proof that Connor's world these days stretches well beyond the lineup. It's the kind of platform that keeps him close to the sport without needing to compete in it, trading heat scores for honest conversation.
And I did it with you. So it's kind of serendipitous that here we are.
Yeah.
And you're the first victim of this podcast.
Thank you for having me on.
Of course.
Yeah, that's rad.
Then there's the family life he walked away from the tour to build. He's now a husband and a father, and by early last year, he was gearing up for something that once would have seemed impossible to imagine. A 14-hour flight to Australia, not for a contest, but with a restless 1-year-old, prepping snacks and toys instead of boards and wetsuits. He said it himself, half laughing, that the logistics of a long-haul flight with an active toddler are a completely different kind of pressure than anything he faced on tour. Outside the water, Connor is still the same Renaissance man he was as a rookie, the one who kept a guitar and a stack of books close by, even during his competitive years. He finished his college degree while still traveling the tour circuit. Brands have taken notice of this fuller picture of who he is too. He picked up a partnership with Costa Sunglasses last year, on top of his longtime relationship with Salty Crew, deals built around the life he's actually living now, not the one he used to compete for. None of it looks like a fall from anything. It looks like a guy who had the rare courage to walk away from the mountain right before he reached the top, because he realized there was a whole different life waiting at the bottom that he wanted more. Connor Coffin's story asks a question most professional athletes never get to answer for themselves. What do you actually want your life to look like when nobody's keeping score anymore? For him, the answer wasn't more contests or more trophies. It was a boat named the Double Edge, a son learning to swim in the same California water his dad grew up in, and mornings that belonged to nobody but himself. If you want to see how another tour veteran built his own life after walking away from competition, that story is on screen right now. Subscribe for more of these.